Salute champions, welcome to another PvP guide. Today I'll be teaching you how to play Frost Death Knight in PvP. In this guide I'll show you the best talents and build that you should go for, like the kind of few viable builds. I'll show you which stats are really important for Frost Death Knight, and I think I'll make suggestions about the gear that I think you should go for. Also show you which enchants you should put on the gear. I'll show you which gems to put in your gem sockets. I'll show you also briefly like which are the best consumables for Frost Death Knights. I'll show you the normal rotation, and I'll show you a few burst rotations. I think I have two. That's because of the different builds, like they changed the burst rotation a bit for them. Down in the video description you will find the timestamps for all the chapters in this videos. Just check the description down below. The talent you'll see here is my personal favorite. It's the one for dual wielding Frost Death Knights. But the thing about a dual wield, what I like about it is like you do more sustained damage. And it like makes you more tanky as well, and compared to wearing a big two-hander. You really want to go with Blinding Sleet, because Blinding Sleet is very crucial to have for your burst. Like your burst as a Frost Death Knight it can be kind of complicated, or a lot of stuff you have to do before you can actually start to dish out damage. And Blinding Sleet for that is an absolute must. And I'll explain that later when we go over the burst rotation. You'll see why Blinding Sleet is really important. Another really good thing you want to go for, of course, is Asphyxiate. It's just a stun. And also if you have a PvP talent, Strangulate, you can turn it into a silence, what a lot of people do. Also what you really want to go for is A-Bomb Limb. A-Bomb Limb is something like I usually didn't like that much, but playing Frost Death Knight make this one mandatory. Again, for your burst setup. As a nice utility is Wrath Walk that gets you out of roots and can save you, can help you escape or close the gap. Another one I think is really important is Death Reach. Death Reach, it might not sound like very useful, but increase the range of your Death Grip by 10 yards. And when you kill an enemy that yields experience or honor, resets the cooldown of Death Grip. 10 yards is really nice because, for example, if you're fighting in arenas, 3v3s, and you have an enemy healer that's near a column, he tries to stay away from you as far as possible. With this talent, Death Reach, you can really confidently grab that healer still towards you, and he'll be not expecting that extra 10 yards. So it's really nice if a healer is far away on the enemy team to grab him into your burst as well, to cleave him down. That's for the general Death Knight tree. I wouldn't change this at all. I would say the one thing you can change is Perforating Chill. You can change this one out. Also what some people do is for Cold First. So every time you interrupt someone with Mind Freeze, you'll get a runic power back and reduce the cooldown by 3 seconds. So if you can time this very well, if you can constantly Mind Freeze successfully, you'll have Mind Freeze up more and more frequent into matches, which is really nice. What most people do is Perforating Chill because it's nice and easy and just annoys people. It really annoys people because they're constantly slowed. For the dual wield, if we look at the Frost spec like this one, a few key ingredients I would say. So here at the end you want to go through these two as well. The nice thing about Obliteration is whenever Pillar Frost is active, Frost Strike and Howling Blast will always grant Killing Machine. This one is crucial to have a really high burst. After that you should go with Arctic Assault, because then again, if you're bursting and you consume a Killing Machine, it fires a Glacier Advance for your target at 80% effectiveness. You'll be going back and forth with Frost Strike and Obliterate during your burst a lot, and this will make sure you'll do extra damage. Here for dual wielding, this row is very important. You go Smothering Offense, your auto attack damage is increased by 10%, and then also this amount is increased for each stack of Icy Talents you have, and it can stack an additional 2 times. Icy Talents is the one right here, which makes sure your attack speed is increased. Attacking fast is crucial because it gives you more procs of Killing Machine and all that kind of good stuff. Bumps up your damage. Also, this one is very nice to have. Icy Death Torrent. Your auto attack critical strikes have a chance to send out a torrent of ice, dealing an X amount of frost damage to enemies in front of you. Because of this talent, you'll be auto-attacking even faster. Like an effective 20% faster with this talent. So you'll just hack and slashing through people, and this will make sure that those critical strikes have a chance to send out a torrent of ice, dealing an X amount of frost damage, or again, beefs up your damage as dual wield, because you're attacking at high speed. The Long Winter is nice, because while Pillar Frost is active, your auto attack critical strikes, which you're doing a lot with dual wielding, it will increase the duration of Pillar Frost by 2 seconds up to a maximum of 6 seconds. Once you have this one, it's up for longer, which means you can dish out more damage, because Pillar of Frost, it increases your strength by 30%, and strength literally affects the damage of every of your spells. It will affect both physical, frost, and all the kind of magic spells you might have. Strength will increase the damage of all of them. Really important. In the middle you want to go with Absolute Zero. So Frostwind's Fury has a 50% reduced cooldown, freeze all enemies hit for 3 seconds. This one is absolutely mandatory again for how you burst as a Frost Death Knight. And you'll see why when I explain about the bursting as a Frost Death Knight. Also, if you go with dual wielding, go for Avalanche. Casting Howling Blast with Rime active causes Jagged Icicles to fall down on your enemies, doing extra amount of frost damage. This is not the one that you really should be looking out for, but you really need to take this one in order to get the key of this build, which is Shattering Blade. When Frost Strike damages an enemy with 5 stacks of resources, and resources is the Rune Forge, it will consume them to deal an additional 115% damage. If that one crits, you're looking at big numbers. And for dual wielding, what I would advise is go with the Rider of the Apocalypse. It's the most universal one and does the most damage for dual wielding as Frost Death Knight. For the PvP talents in general, no matter which build you go for, Dead of Winter is an absolute must. You never go without it. Because again, this one is crucial for your burst. Because whenever you cast Remorseless Winter, if it damages the target 5 times, they are stunned for 4 seconds. You'll see why this is important in the burst rotation. This one, I like to go with Death Chill, because every time I press Remorseless Winter, make sure the enemies can't escape, they're rooted in place. Which is nice, helps again with your burst, and just to be annoying to enemies. Just keep them slowed, keep them from moving anywhere. And also when you do Chains of Ice on the target, they're also rooted in place for 4 seconds. And if you cast Chains of Ice again, they're rooted again for 4 seconds. This talent you can swap out, but if you do a lot of Battleground Blitz, I think you should go with this one. Because on Battleground Blitz, this one's useful, because then you prevent people from moving away or moving to objectives fast. Which is really annoying, and yeah, it can be really important to slow down the enemy for your team to gain the upper hand. Furthermore, Delirium is a very nice one in PvP as well, because Howling Blast applies Delirium, reduce the cooldown recovery rate of movement, enhancing abilities by 50% for 12 seconds. This one's very nice, because if you have people that have high mobility like Demon Hunters or Monks, if you apply a Howling Blast on them, they'll get Delirium. And all those enhancement moving abilities like Fell Rush, Roll, all that stuff that enhances mobility will reduce the recovery rate of those movement enhancement by 50%. So that just in simple terms means they can use it less frequently, or aka they're moving around way slower. And because it hits multiple targets when you do Howling Blast, because it's an AoE attack, everyone who's hit will be affected with this, and they're gonna be miserable. So this is my favorite build. I'll show you another two-handed build that's really good, but that's really bursty. So this is the big burst two-handed weapon Frost Death Knight build that I think is very powerful, very potent. The left tree I changed absolutely nothing from the dual wield build. In the center you see we obviously go with Deathbringer, because it synchronizes very well with the talent we have right here, Breath of Sindragosa. Continues to deal an extra amount of frost damage every 1 second to enemies in a cone in front of you until your runic power is exhausted. Deals reduced damage to secondary targets. The good thing is, Breath of Sindragosa pairs very well with Reaper's Mark, because Reaper's Marks will put a debuff on them, and it will look at the amount of stacks of shadow or frost damage you do to a target, and stacking it to a certain amount of times, maximum 40 stacks, and then it explodes. This one, Breath of Sindragosa, will apply those stacks very quickly, and at the end it's gonna explode, and you have this one, Exterminate. After Reaper's Mark explodes, your next two obliterates cost 1 rune and summons 2 sight to strike your enemies. The first sight hits massively on your enemy target, and the other one does an AoE. Because we're two-handed, we're not going with this row right here, because this one's more for dual wielding. I also not take Shattering Blade with this option. It's not needed again. I think the rune that you want to put on your weapon is the Rune of the Fallen Crusade, because it increases your strength, or has a chance to increase your strength by 15%. And again, if you have a lucky proc when you're having Breath of Sindragosa up and the Reaper's Mark, that will do massive damage. The only downside is Breath of Sindragosa has like a 2-minute cooldown, so you can only do it once in 2 minutes. But this is a very bursty build, and I'll show you in the burst rotation how this one will look too, next to the dual wield one, because this one is a bit different. If you do want to have a two-hander build, but you don't want to play with Breath of Sindragosa, because not everyone likes it, what you'll do, you'll keep everything like this the same, but you'll take out 3 points here and put them in here. This way you still do a lot of damage without Breath of Sindragosa. So with this one, your burst is not as powerful as Breath of Sindragosa. However, you're not bound to that 2-minute window. And also you see something strange here. We have still Shattering Blade. Why do we do that? Well, with this build, take this one, because then in your burst, whenever you do a Frost Strike, that one can hit massively as well. But there's one really key important thing. For Shattering Blade to work, if you have a two-hander and you used to play with the Rune of the Fallen Crusader, you have to swap that one out for Rune of Resources, or otherwise Shattering Blade will not work. It will not trigger. By the way, guys, all these talents I leave down in the video description, so you can just import them right into World of Warcraft and have some fun. And I think now it's time to talk about some stats and some gear, so let's go. Yes, for the stat priority for Frost Death Knights, you want to first stack strength as high as you can, because strength will amplify all of your damage, whether it's physical or magical. After that you want to have some versatility, roughly to minimum 20% or to 25% I would advise, because it makes sure in PvP you'll deal a little bit more damage, and also you take reduced damage from other players, so it makes you more tanky. After that you want to have high amounts of haste, because haste will increase your attack speed, will use the global, so you can get your abilities off quicker, which is very important for your burst. And also with your haste, your auto attacks are faster, and your auto attack critical strikes will have a chance to send out a wave of ice, which deals damage for dual wielding build. It will give you more procs of killing machine. And the one thing with those auto attacks, like to send that ice wave, they have to be critical ones. So after haste, that's why I advise to have mastery and critical strike roughly around the same amount. Because mastery you need for some increased frost damage, which will be, for example, your remorseless winter, your howling blast, and really important, your frost strikes. And also like your frostwind's fury. If you have the breath of Sindragosa build, that will deal increased damage as well with mastery. And critical strike again, because you need some critical strikes in your auto attacks, so you can send out those ice waves to deal damage with your auto attack. So now it's time to talk about gear, guys. It's a whole list, like mostly of conquest gear and some crafted gear. For the head slot I would go with the Exhumed Centurion's Galley, which is a 875 conquest piece, which you want to make into a tier set with haste versatility. For the neck slot I went with the Algari Competitor's Amulet, which is a crafted necklace that I will put haste and versatility on it. And also you want to have an embellishment on there. I would go with the Dark Moon Sigil Ascension. For the shoulders I would go with the Exhumed Centurion Spikes. It's a conquest piece that you can get for 700 conquest. Turn it into a tier set and then it will come into mastery and critical strike. For the back slot I would go with the Force Gladiator's Drape, which is a conquest cape. It costs 525 conquest points and costs of haste and versatility. For the chest slot I would go with the Force Gladiator's Chestplate, which is an 875 conquest piece. Cost of mastery or versatility. Or you can go with the crafted one, which is the Algari Competitor's Plate Breastplate, and put haste and versatility on it. For the wrist slot I would go with the Force Gladiator's Plate Vambraces, which is again a conquest item, costs 525 conquest, comes with haste and versatility. The hand slot I would go with the Exhumed Centurion's Gauntlets, another conquest piece, costs 700 conquest points. Turn that one into a tier set and that will make it come with crit and mastery. For the belt slot you again have two options. You can go for the conquest one, which is a Force Gladiator's Plate Great Belt. That one comes with haste and versatility. Or you can go with the Algari Competitor's Plate Waist Guard, which is a crafted one, and put haste and versatility on that one. For the leg slot I would go with the Centurion's Chausses, which is a conquest item, which costs 875 conquest points. You have to turn that one into a tier set, comes with haste and mastery. For the feet slot I will go with the Force Gladiator's Plate War Boots, another conquest piece, costs 700 conquest points and comes with haste versatility. And for the rings I would go with two Algari Competitor's Sickness, both are crafted. On one of them you have to put an embellishment on there, which is the Riding Armor Bending, because that one makes sure the effect of the other embellishment that we put onto our neck, the Dark Moon Sigil Ascension, will make sure that one will be more powerful. With that first ring, I would also go with the stats haste and versatility. For the second ring slot, I will go with the same ring, Algari Competitor's Signet, which is again a crafting one. And that one you want to put mastery versatility on it. For the trinkets, we have two options if you are a human or not a human. For everyone who's not a human, play with the Force Gladiator's Medallion and the Force Gladiator's Insignia of Alacrity. If you are playing a human, it gives you a bit of flexibility, so you can go with the Force Gladiator's Badge of Ferocity and Force Gladiator Insignia of Alacrity. For the weapons, well, here we come. For the main hand, I would go with the Force Gladiator's Sword, and that one costs 900 conquest points, comes with haste versatility. And for the dual wield version, I would also use that one. And I think for the two-handed, you have an axe on there as well. Like for the big two-hander, I would go with the Force Gladiator's Great Axe, with a two-handed axe, which comes with versatility and mastery. And that one costs either two Force Gladiator's weapon tokens, or you can even buy it with conquest points as well. And I'll leave it, all of it, I'll leave down in the description, so you can just have a read through the equipment and the embellishments that I just mentioned. And yeah, let's go to the next.
And I hear you thinking, what about the enchants, Dirk? What do I put on there?
Well, don't panic, I got you covered right here. So, let's go over it. For the wrist, you want to go with the Enhanced Bracelet Chant of Armored Leech, or you can go with the Enchant Bracelet Chant of Armored Speed. For the cloak, you want to go with the Enchant Cloak Chant of Leeching Fangs, or the Enchant Cloak of Burrowing Rapidly. Both are absolutely fine. For the chest, you want to have the Enchant Chest Oathsworn Strength, because again, strength affects all your damaging abilities. For the legs, you want to put a Stormbound Armor Kit on there. For the rings, both of them you can go with an Enchant Ring Cursed Mastery to buff up your mastery a bit. But you can also play around with haste if you feel like you need more haste. But that's something you have to test out, try out what you like more. For the boots, I would go with the Enchant Boost Defender's March. And for Frost Death Knights, for the weapon, it's not a normal enchant, of course, because we have Rune Forging. So let me explain. For the dual wielding build, on your main weapon, you always go with Rune of Resources. Because that will make sure that with that talent we took before, you have to have 5 stacks of resources on them, consume them, and then your Frost Strike will hit for massive amounts of damage. Rune of Resources, absolute massive, absolute must. Put that one on your main weapon as a dual wield Frost Death Knight. On your offhand weapon, you have 2 options. The one option that is most generally used on your offhand for dual wielding is the Rune of the Fallen Crusader. It will heal you for roughly 4% of your health, and also give you 15% strength. And again, strength boosts all your damaging abilities. If you feel you're very, very squishy, what you can also do, you can swap out the Rune of the Fallen Crusader and put the Rune of the Stone Skin Gargoyle on there. That one I think increases your armor by 5 or 6%, I think, and also increases all your stats by 5 or 6%, which again is also strength, stamina, critical strike, haste. You get the point. But the most common one for dual wielding Frost is main hand Rune of Resources, offhand Rune of the Fallen Crusader. So for everyone who is wearing a big two-hand as a Frost Death Knight, it's a bit different depending on the build you're going for. If you're going with the Breath of Sindragosa build, you have to put Rune of the Fallen Crusader on there. Because if you're lucky and you get a strength proc while you're about to burst, man, your burst is gonna go through the roof. Absolutely insane. However, if you're not playing the Breath of Sindragosa build with the Shattering Blade one, which empowers your Frost Strikes, then again, you need Rune of Resources on your big two-hander. So, for the big two-handers out there, if you play with the Breath of Sindragosa build, Rune of the Fallen Crusader. If you're not, then go with the Rune of Resources for the Shattering Blade talent to be effective. That's about the enchantments, and I think now we can cover some gems and then after some consumables. Alright champions, let's talk about gems. Can be very brief about this one. I think there are 2 gems you generally need. One which is an absolute must is an Enduring Bloodstone, which is kind of like a PvP gemstone. Will give you an X amount of primary stat. And also the really important one, it will give you 5% damage reduction when you are affected by a crowd control effect. So in PvP, if you're getting stunned, it makes it a bit harder for the enemy to kill you, to burst you down in the stun. Everything else, you want to put Masterful Emeralds on there, which gives haste and mastery. That's all you need to know about the gems, and I think next we can go to the consumables where it gets interesting. Let's go. So we'll start off with consumables for alchemy, a flask of alchemical chaos. That one's nice because it increases a random secondary stat by an X amount at the cost of a really small amount of 2 other secondary stats. That one causes the most DPS gain, absolute must, and for a bursting potion you go with the tempered potion. It will increase a stat by an X amount for half a minute, which is again very, very nice. And also after that, what you can do as well, you can also, if you have the money for it, can go for a crystallized augmentation rune, which increases your primary stat for an hour. And also what you can do on both your weapons if you're dual wielding, you can put Algaran Mana Oil on there, which increases your critical strike and your haste. Critical strike is not that important, but the haste is really nice. And again, you can see that with dual wielding, you can put 2 Algaran Mana Oils on there. And with a big two-hander, you can only put 1 on there. For some cooking consumables, you have a few options which kind of do the same. You have the Outsider's Provisions, Ballader's Bounty, Jester's Board, Emperor's Farewell, and all of them, when you spend at least 10 seconds eating, you'll become well fed and gain 470 of your highest secondary stat for an hour. Those are the best consumables for Frost Death Knights. I'll leave them down in the description of this video for you to read, so be sure to check it out. And I think it's time to go to the rotations. Normal rotation for Frost Death Knight is probably one of the easiest in the game, to be honest. I'll just put a priority list here on the screen. Also put it down in the description so you can check it out. The normal rotation looks as follow. You in general want to start off with Chains of Ice on your target, on your primary target, to keep him slowed, so it's easy to have uptime on that person. You want to also maintain Howling Blast to apply Frost Fever. Important to note is you want to maintain Frost Fever on as many targets as you can, because it has a chance to generate additional runic power. You should also use Howling Blast whenever you have a Rhyme proc, because it will deal more damage. You should use Remorseless Winter off cooldown, but beware, when you're about to burst, you better hold on to Remorseless Winter when your Pillar of Frost is active. So then you can combine those two, because then it's easy for you to follow it with damage. You want to use Obliterate to generate runic power, or whenever you get a Killing Machine proc, and you want to use Frost Strike to spend runic power if you're not taking damage. The moment you're taking quite heavy damage, instead of using Frost Strike, you can use Death Strike to spend the runic power to heal you up for the portion of the damage you took. That's the normal rotation. You can see it on screen. I'll put it down in the description below so you can just read it through. And yeah, I'll go to a target dummy and I'll show you how it looks like. So here we are, the target dummy for the normal rotation. So we're gonna apply a Chains of Ice into Howling Blast. And then we can just Remorseless Winter, Obliterate, Howling Blast, Frost Strike, Obliterate. Oh, we have nothing now, so we have to wait. Obliterate again, Frost Strike, Obliterate, Frost Strike, Howling Blast. You can, if you take damage, do a Death Strike right there. And here we have a Killing Machine proc, Obliterate, there we go. Like, that's in general how you do normal rotation. As a Death Knight, yeah, it sometimes is like a 2-button spec or 3-button spec. It's really, really easy to do. So for the burst rotation, guys, like I mentioned before, we kind of have 2 burst rotations I have to go through for the different builds we have. The one I'll cover here is the one that you would be using for when you're dual wielding, or when you have a 2-hander without the breath ability, without the breath of Sindragosa. And both these builds use the Ride of the Apocalypse hero talents. So it looks as follows for both. Use Howling Blast before you actually start to burst to apply the Frost Fever. You Chains of Ice your kill target. Then you do Abomination Limb into Death Grip another target to your location. You'll do Blinding Sheet to blind them so they can't move, which is really necessary for you to do the following, because you need to press Empowering Rune Weapon because that will give you haste and give you runic power, which you're gonna need to smoothen out your follow-up. You wanna have Death and Decay, because then it'll make your Obliterates cleave. And also then after the Death and Decay, you wanna place Remorseless Winter with an AoE stun, but it takes a while for the stun to happen. So after Remorseless Winter, that's why you wanna press Frostwind's Fury, because that's a group stun. They will stun for 3 seconds. When they're out of that one, I think then your Remorseless Winter will pop off in 2 seconds, so then they'll stun again. Then you want to use Pillar of Frost into Frost Strike, into Obliterate, into Frost Strike, and you weave back and forth between Obliterates, Frost Strikes. And if you get a Rhyme proc, only then in the burst you should use Howling Blast instead of Frost Strike, because also that one will generate also Killing Machine. That's how it is for the one burst rotation. I'll show you that one on the target dummy first. Then after that, I'll show you on screen, similar to this one, the other one with the Breath of Sindragosa build, and then after that one I'll also show you that one on the target dummy. So let's go to the target dummy for the dual wielding build and the 2-handed build without Breath of Sindragosa. Let's go. Okay, so here are for the burst rotation for dual wield and the 2-handed weapon without the Breath of Sindragosa build. So here we go. Howling Blast, Chains of Ice, Aimborn Limb, ground to a location, and then there we go, Blinding Sheet, Death and Decay, and there we go. Off of our burst. Let's see the damage. There we go. You just go back and forth. You can Frost Strike into Obliterate. Howling Blast, Obliterate. Howling Blast, Obliterate. Like you can see, like you do a lot of damage and it's not that hard as well. The burst rotation will be down in the video description. So as I mentioned before, I also have a burst rotation with a Breath Sindragosa build for a 2-handed Deathbringer Death Knight. Put it here on screen and also put it down in the description so you can read. Your Chains of Ice, your kill target. Your A-Bomb Limp. Your Death Grip, another target to your location. Blinding Sheet to prevent them from getting away. And Power Rune Weapon. Death and Decay, so your Obliterates will cleave. Then you will do Remorseless Winter for the AoE stun. And then after Remorseless Winter you do Frostwind's Fury to insta-stun them. And then when they come out of the Frostwind's Fury stun, they'll be stunned by Remorseless Winter. Then you want to do Pillar of Frost. You want to do Reaper's Mark, Breath of Sindragosa, and Howling Blast from the guaranteed Rhyme proc from getting the Biting Cold talent. When Remorseless Winter damage at least 3 enemies. Otherwise, you can replace this stat with a Frost Strike. Then use Obliterate to generate Runic Power and consume Killing Machine. You go back to Frost Strike, Obliterate, Frost Strike, Obliterate. And if you get a Rhyme proc, you can of course, instead of a Frost Strike, do a Howling Blast. I'll have it here on screen, also down in the description, so go check it out. And let's go to a target dummy to see what kind of damage we can do. Here we are, the training dummy champions. I'm going to show you how to do the Breath of Sindragosa. Two-handed weapon burst with the Deathbringer hero talent. So I'll start off with a Chains of Ice, A-Bomb Limp, grab their enemy. Let's go, Blinding Sheet, Death and Decay. And there we go with the burst. Gonna pop some huge numbers right here, guys. Let's go. Already one side went off. There we go. Can obliterate again. Howling Blast, Obliterate, Howling Blast, Frost Strike, Obliterate. And that was already the burst, and you can see the numbers right here. Absolutely disgusting damage. Look at this. Reaper's Mark, Exterminate, Breath Sindragosa. Man, that's really hard to survive if you don't pop any cooldowns. Probably the hardest one to set up for Frost Death Knight. This one right here with Breath Sindragosa. A lot of things you have to do before you can actually start damaging your opponent. But it does a shit ton of damage. And there we have it, champions. My comprehensive guide of Frost Death Knights for PvP in the War within. And if you haven't already, and if you do like this video, this guide, make sure to leave a like on this video. Drop a comment what you think about this guide. And maybe check out my channel and consider subscribing.
And if you don't subscribe, I will find you and I'll turn you into my own personal undead minion. Salute.